best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sackheads Radio. Sackheads Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Hey, it's the 20th of August, 2014. This is the Sackheads Radio Show live here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining us this Wednesday evening. Thank you to all who came over from the Exceptional Conservative Show. Our good friend Ken McClinton, who might be one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. We love Ken here on SHR.
Whoa.
Well, I said one of them. Stop.
Oh, okay.
Now,
I was going to be offended for a moment.
Those of you who are listening may or may not know that Clint sounds a little different than he normally does.
Right, yeah, it's... Oh, I thought you were going to tell them about the operation I had on my vocal cords.
No. I know why you did that. Yeah, your vocal cords. That's what you called it.
Right.
Yeah.
My vocal cord.
Clint's calling in telephonically.
I'm on assignment.
He is on assignment right now.
I'm on assignment.
And tell
we decided to send me a... And I literally had to... I am out in the middle of nowhere. I had to hike, and when I say hike, I mean stumble. Because let me tell you about this drink that I have in my pack right now, my Camelback. I have 7-Up, lemonade, and rum.
Okay.
It's
and
mostly
that was the
rum
survival kit we agreed upon.
with a little bit of. Right. No, absolutely. And so I had to stumble my way to, I think it's about 1.25 miles to where I could get enough signal to call in. And, it's kind of like it might be like a shed that I found that has internet connection to allow me to okay, so it might be a public library that I broke into to your internet connection. Maybe.
Either way.
Either way, so I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I'm away from our studio, looking for a bunker location, one that we could run electricity to and keep Socko contained. So he keeps escaping from his cage, and that's why we were not on the air last week, because we had to track Socko down. He went missing.
Okay.
He slipped the GPS, and so now I'm on assignment to find a pseudo location to keep him. Because he really blends in with his hairiness. I mean, like, he could be in the pound, he could be on a Star Wars movie set. We don't know.
Fortunately, we did get him back. The dogs were able to hunt him down. So he is in the temporary holding facility until we can move into the bigger one. And I'm glad you were able to join us this evening. I'm so glad you have rum inside that the Camelback, because scurvy is an issue where you are. And, so you have some vitamin C.
It is, and that's why I have the lemonade. That's why I have the lemonade with it.
Right. And the alcohol makes sure that it doesn't go bad. So it's a good combination.
No, it's absolutely the survivalist kid. It's in all the manuals if you've never read them.
Ag in the chat room wants to know if we had Socko chipped yet. And I said,
wow.
after this last escape, we got it done, so that's good.
Yep.
That's horrible.
But you know what, Socko, you say that, but looking at you, you can't even tell where they put that into your neck. Like,
Wait,
the
what?
incision was clean. You slept through the whole thing.
Well, see, here's the thing, Shai. I don't think he knew that we had him chipped.
Right.
I mean, we said we were taking him out drinking, if you remember, and then
Yes.
he woke up like in the bed of a pickup.
Well, the hardest part.
He thought he
the
had a
hardest-
great night. Remember, you put the lipstick on and like kissed on his neck and stuff, and said, "Oh, he's going to think he had a great night."
Yes, he's going to.
Little did he know we got him neutered and chipped.
Oh man, so that was last week. That's why we missed last week. You were down south looking for him, and I was in the area. He got out and said he had to go to the to the hospital, and that's why we unleashed him from the cage, and then he took off running like a gazelle. Which it's funny because you would think that a guy who is locked into a little 3x5 cage for a couple weeks at a time would be a little cramped up. But I'll tell you what, Sacco, you hit it and just ran with it. I've never seen somebody spring so much after being in a crouch position. So that was really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are having a connection issue with Clint. We're trying to get him back on the line.
He's drinking a little too much tonight.
Yeah, I know. I wonder if it's him and the phone. I wonder if that's what it is.
His ears pressing the end button.
Well, if we have a hard time that way, we may just have to go via Skype, cell and wire him right into the board.
Yeah, I could do that.
Um,
Let's see how this goes. Here he is.
Oh, he's calling us back.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, I'm so sorry, Clint. Sacco is a little angry about the chip thing and hung up on you. I don't know. I yelled at him while we were off the air, so I'm sorry.
It's not like he shouldn't expect this kind of hijinks from us. I mean, really, it's his fault
It is
for
totally
not
his
foreseeing
fault.
that we were going to get him chipped and allowing us to get him drunk.
Well, and it's one of those things, too. I don't know what he expected when he signed on with us, but, he's getting almost what he should have literally expected.
Right. No, like we make no bones about the stuff we do.
Right. Well, I'm glad you were able to find your signal after your hike through the woods. There's so much to talk about this week, and we do have a really good show for you guys. We're going to get into the topics here shortly. I'll tell you, 1 week off, and it's almost like we've been out of touch for a couple months. It's amazing how much news happens in this country in a week. And it's even more amazing because it feels like we as a nation have been in constant crisis since, 2008 or so, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, Obama's first term.
Oh, yeah, right. That's what it was. Sorry about that.
So, no, you were right. We've been in crisis ever since that time.
But it seems like you can't wake up a day now without something major going on. And, you see the video of the president playing golf or signing executive orders, which is so nice. And you know what? Hands off to him to realize and not try to steal the thunder of the slain general at his own funeral. And staying on Martha's Vineyard instead of going to the funeral of the highest-ranking service member to be killed in action since Vietnam. I really, really tip my hat to the president for understanding that he didn't need to be there and take that.
Right. I mean, yeah, he's the president. Why would he want to take away from the event by gracing everybody with his presence, and then he's the great one that's there, and then everybody's focused on him as opposed to like being part of the service, right?
Right.
So that was very nice of him.
So, I thought that was nothing but, oh, wait. Maybe not.
That was class.
Yeah, you get the last three letters right. Just remove the C and the L. I am so disgusted. I am really disgusted that the highest-ranking military official to be killed since Vietnam, folks, and our president couldn't get off the island until there was actually a tragedy to take advantage of. And that really tells you how ridiculous it is.
Well, it tells you what kind of person he is.
Yeah, it really
What kind of
does.
narcissist he is.
Yeah, it's
Right?
all about him. So, before we jump into the big story this week, which is Ferguson, and actually, I think I would almost argue that the beheading is the biggest story of the week, and we'll get into that. But, it's funny. Not too long after Rick Perry made a play for the border with the National Guard, something interesting happened, Clint.
I would be shocked if it was something like he got indicted, but I know that wouldn't happen.
Well, wet up that sponge and put it on your forehead, son, because you are about to get shocked. He was indicted. Oh, man. So, amazingly, the governor of Texas was indicted this week on charges that essentially stem from a BS thing. That his director, it's like the director of public safety or something like that, was trying to push an action and got hooked for a DUI or arrested for a DUI. And then it was the state district attorney, where the public integrity for the county comes from. That's the office.
Was it the district attorney or the state attorney general? I think it was the local district attorney, right?
After district attorney Rosemary Leanberg would not resign following a DWI conviction. So
Okay.
So then all of a sudden, the governor said that he was going to veto an action if she didn't resign because he didn't believe that she should hold her office based on the arrest.
Right, because it's and now it's tied to ethics, which is what he was vetoing funding for, correct?
Yes, exactly. So
Okay.
he vetoed it, and then amazingly, all of a sudden, he's been indicted on 2 felonies, essentially for public corruption, if you will. And they're saying that he didn't follow his orders, and he's using his position to hold that bill hostage, and he made a threat from a political point of view and waved political power. But at the end of the day, he stuck to his guns. And it's funny how many...
I like what you did there.
lawmakers-
You said he stuck to his... I like what you did there. You said
It's
he
Texas.
stuck to his guns, and we're talking about Texas, right?
Right, it's Texas.
No, I noticed that. I was just commenting that I noticed that.
How many times do politicians, both state, local, and federal, make threats like this and follow through with them and use their position of power in a horrible, whether you agree or disagree, they use that political power, and nobody's ever said boo about it, really, for the most
Well,
part.
here's the thing. He has the authority to veto,
Yes.
and he did so. Regardless of the reason he vetoed, he has the authority to do that.
Yes.
So it's not like he did something that was outside of his authority. It's not like he did something. And I understand, look, her lawsuit is essentially, she's basically saying, yes, listen, Governor Perry can say whatever he wants. He has freedom of speech. And yes, he has the statutory authority to veto. However, he can't do them both at the same time. And I don't buy that argument. So if he has the right to do both of those things and you combine them both, what's the problem? It doesn't matter why he didn't veto. What if he vetoed it because he says, you know what, I don't like the color purple, and the main person over there wore a purple tie and I don't like it, so I'm vetoing this. He has the authority to do so. Does he need to justify his exercise of his lawful authority? I don't believe he does.
Right. I don't think so either. And I don't know if you as a lawmaker automatically gives up your First Amendment right when you're doing something in line with your work. Or as an
No,
executive
you
of
don't.
a state. You don't give up your First Amendment right just because you are acting on behalf of the state. Now, if you want to say he can't turn around and say, well, now the state of Texas doesn't like the color purple because I don't, per se,
Right.
and then pass law to do it, that's a little bit different. But he's vetoing something, and the reason he did it is actually noble, in my opinion. He did it because he wasn't going to let... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, I agree with you 100%. He's doing it because he believes that particular branch should not be funded since this person is clearly not doing the right thing in his view by stepping down. He believes that it's a conflict of interest for her to have this criminal conviction and continue on her post. I may disagree with him on that. It's a DUI. And do I believe that somebody should lose their job? No, I don't. I think it's up to the voters to decide. So I don't necessarily agree with his reason, but I don't have to agree with his reason. I can disagree with his reason for doing it, but still say yes, he has the lawful authority to do it. And this is a political issue. This is really a case for the voters to decide. Here's the problem with this. The problem is we're now walking such a fine line about litigating everything as opposed to allowing politics to play out. For example, if you're talking about something of this nature, and we're just having lawsuits be filed and freaking charges being thrown all over the place for really, I mean, even USA Today says that this is kind of there was an article about how it's a flimsy indictment over there, and that's USA Today. That's not
not the most conservative newspaper
organization
in the world.
Right. So, and if you really don't allow the voters to do their job, if the voters don't like Governor Perry's veto of this, and the Democrats don't like his veto of this, look, it's lawfully exercised power. Hit him over the head with it in the upcoming presidential election if he's going to run.
Right.
You know,
And
don't bang out a felony indictment over it, or get a grand jury to indict.
Well, that's all
whatever
this
it
is political
you know?
theater at the end of the day. This is political theater. Listen, they're going to get the indictment. They'll never get a conviction on this. You know that, and I know that. What they're doing is this is a move from the Dem community to try to smear him going into the election, to try to smear him and make him look stupid for everything that's going on the border and everything they said. If they can try to turn him into a felon, listen, our next topic, we talk about Ferguson, Missouri. The people have already going to be making their decision. It doesn't matter if it ever gets to trial. It doesn't matter if it gets thrown out in pretrial. It doesn't matter. They're pushing this to try to get people to make their decision before anything even comes close to happening. And that's the problem. It's a political game. And we said this on the show, and I said this on the show, when Boehner was talking about the final lawsuit against the President Obama. I said it was a horrible idea. If you have something to get him on, and you can indict him, and you have criminal charges, then you should go right to impeachment. If you have the evidence, you go to impeachment. The same thing with Governor Perry. And I don't see any difference in that. And I know, Clint, we're having issues with your signal, but, you know, I was just talking about this case and Boehner going after Obama and his lawsuit and kind of tying the two in, saying essentially, if you have enough that he's committing a crime, go the impeachment route. The same thing with Boehner and the president. If you can, do it. If not, you wait for the next election. But you don't try a half-baked criminal case to essentially give him bad political light, which is exactly what this is doing. This has nothing to do with what the criminal justice system is being used essentially as a political game here.
Political
and that's
tool.
Sad. Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that there's not a statute, and there may be. I'm just unfamiliar with Texas statute, and I'm just throwing it out there right now. I'm speaking from a place of guessing and not firm knowledge here. But I am surprised that there is not a Texas statute that would prohibit the governor from this type of political, even political criminal charges or proceedings. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And
I mean, I'm surprised there's not something in law that prohibits criminal charges being filed against a governor or a grand jury indicting a sitting governor for exercise of lawful authority. That to me seems like a no-brainer.
well, and like I said, you would think if they have it, they'd go right to impeachment. Because why wouldn't you want to get rid of him now? And if you could prove, and I would sit here, if you read down this, it's very political based. It has everything to do with his office, his actions, and I would think that if you have that, why wouldn't you impeach him? And I'll tell you why, because it would never stand. The impeachment would never pass in Texas, Everybody knows this is a political game, but now the criminal justice system, who is supposed to be non-biased one way or the other, politics or not, now has to hear this case and get tied up because it makes news and it makes Governor Perry look bad. It has nothing to do with the reality. It has to do with the image. And that's one of the biggest problems I have in this country right now is everything is about flash. I'm calling us a drive-through society. We pull up, open up the internet. We pull up to the drive-through menu. We go to our favorite social media. We read for about 8 seconds. Or, the equivalent of ordering your meal. You drive around the corner, you pay, leave, and eat it. You don't really worry about what's inside of it. You don't worry about anything like that. All you're doing is just digesting the quickest thing, whether it's good or bad, and moving on. And the sad part is it's influencing many of the young people in this country way before. And they're not being taught to research and educate themselves. They're being taught to eat what's in front of them, shut up, and move on. And that's kind of what's going on.
This is what you're tested on. Memorize these dates. These people were just rich white slave owners, and you don't need to worry about the substance of them. And the Constitution is just it's just kind of a guideline, like the Pirates Code, and that's it, right?
That's 100% it. And that seems to be the latest political game. And like I said, I accuse Boehner of doing the same thing when he's talking about that lawsuit against the president. It's a political game.
We talked about that before. Just impeach him.
Right.
If you have it, impeach him and let the Senate not convict him, and after the evidence is heard, and then those people have to answer to their electorate as to why they either voted to convict or voted to acquit.
Yeah, so it's just a sad case. And I give the governor credit. He's taking it the right way. He's pretty much said, hey, you know what, this is BS.
He turned himself in to get booked.
Right, and then he's going to leave. So, and then he's going to fight it, and he's going to win, folks. I mean, you can look at this. I read some of the indictment earlier today, or at least the alleged indictment and what the professionals saying it contains. There's nothing there.
Yeah, it's 2 pages. It's nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing there, and there's nothing that they're not going to convict him on a 2-page indictment. If you want to see real criminal work on a state level and you want to read a major indictment, read Governor Leland Yee out of McDonald's. McDonald's. I just read McDonald's in the chat room. Out of California.
Right.
Hey, I can get you a double cheeseburger, Big Mac,
Well, everyone in the chat room's making comments about my drive-through mentality, and I was reading Ken's who said, I'm going to McDonald's, be right back. If I'm not back in time, blame the police and call Al Sharpton to my funeral. So I read that and laughed, so I said McDonald's. But, that's a 50-page indictment, and I read that one too. That's the difference between real corruption in politics and BS. When you have a 2-page indictment, and I can't believe they got a grand jury to vote to indict, but either way.
Well, they brought in coffee. I mean, come on.
That's true. If it was me in there, I'd have been like, hang him. Ooh, does that have sugar in it? Ooh, chocolate Kreller. It's sad, and it's a sad state of affairs. And it's really an amazing dissection of what's going on in politics right now. Here's Governor Perry, who, and some people could say that he's using the border crisis to kind of bolster himself getting ready to go into the presidential election. But
that's
Governor
a real
Perry,
issue also.
Right. And he's doing, and I believe that he's doing what he thinks is best for the state. Now, is that making him look good? Yeah. Because most people think he's doing the right thing. It's going to make him look good, but I don't think he's doing it strictly for politics.
Right.
He's doing it because it's the right thing to do, and that's okay. And listen, I've said on the past of the show, I'm not always a Rick Perry fan. I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think he's a horrible person, anything like that. I just don't always agree with him.
Right.
But I think the way he's dealt with Texas and the border crisis has been phenomenal. He did exactly what a state governor is supposed to do. He looked at the federal government and essentially rolled his hand up his chin to say, F you, you're not going to help us. We're going to take care of it ourselves.
Because the 10th Amendment says we can.
Absolutely. So, in that regard, I give Governor Perry a ton of credit. So to have this ridiculous ridiculous charges levied against him in order to smear. It's a smear campaign. This is the equivalent of photoshopping his head onto somebody doing something horrible, or just making bold-faced lies and throwing it all over the internet. It's a smear campaign. If they were in high school, this district attorney would honestly be suspended for for harassment. Like, that's the society we live in right now. It's horrible.
If they were in high school, Rick Perry would knock this attorney. Well, it's a female, right? Would knock her husband on his ass.
Egg in the chat room says this is as obvious as the bulge in Michelle's dress. Well, it's all about what color you wear, really. I mean, there's slimming colors, pinstripes, draws the attention up and down. You can do different things with dresses. What? So we're going to go into a break here. We're going to go in about 2 minutes early because our next topic, we're going to get hot and heavy into Ferguson. We come back, Clint's going to lay out all the known facts to date here on the SHR Media Network on the Sackheads Radio Show. And then we're going to just go from there. And there's so much to talk about. Some of it new, some of it might be a little recycled, but of course we're going to give you the amazing Sackhead view on it, so you don't want to miss that because that would be, honestly, come on, Socko. Man,
what do you do
with him? Sound effects. Oh, he's been sound effects Sally the whole time you've been gone, Clint. It's.
I can't hear them on my end, so that's probably good.
Yeah, no, it's probably good. So we're up against a break. Let's take that break. We're going to come back at 3 here on the Sackheads Radio Show. We're going to get right into everything that's going on.
Sackheads Radio.
Missouri, back in 3.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Sackheads Radio.
And we're back here on the Sackheads Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So much to talk about out of Ferguson, Missouri. And Clint's going to be back here with us in a second, and he's really going to run down all the known facts to date and put them in chronological order to really kind of dispel some of the BS that's out there and dispel some of the ridiculousness that's going on. And this is, as we talked earlier on the show, the same thing with Rick Perry. Society's kind of taken a look at this the exact same way. They haven't waited for any sort of investigation to come out. They haven't waited for facts. It's just been a quick in and out. People just automatically, you looked at all the news briefs and it was white cop shoots unarmed black kid. Like there was no, even Fox News, there was no real reporting on it. And that's the problem with lamestream media right now is
they hear something and they jump.
Yeah.
They just...
And the quote unquote mainstream media, if you will, the big news stations and everyone out there trying to sell advertisement and stuff like that, they know they're losing, in my opinion, they're losing to shows like this and bloggers and stuff like that, people that are actually taking the time to be a little bit more investigative and showing the side that has kind of been just smeared for a long time. When you have somebody like Jason Miller, who lives and breathes through the news, and he investigates everything he talks about to the utmost extreme, and people are actually respecting that now because that's long gone of the age of the old reporters, and that's a big deal. So, it's one of those things that now I think people are demanding more. So lamestream media's response is to put up as much insightful, hateful rhetoric.
It sells.
I could tell you when it all really kicked off, I got like 5. I have every news station in the world on my phone. All my alerts came in, and all of them said the exact same thing: armed police officer shoots unarmed black teen. And you look at that. And you're like, my God, this is horrible. Why would somebody do that, right? I think the average person, now me personally, I know mainstream media, so I immediately waited and said there's going to be way more to this story than we're getting, which, by the way, I was right. I didn't jump all over it. I didn't go right away and say, it's got to be the way it is because that's just what's coming out. No, as time's progressed, we've figured out that, hey, the initial story, these news flashes, these quote-unquote journals are just blabbing about, are more and more way off. And it's funny because you see how lamestream media is really starting to get away a little bit this past couple days from the racist angle, that it was done completely on race, that there was, when this first started, the story was essentially that this cop stepped out of his car, told him to put his hands up, and then shot him before he had a chance to. Yeah. There was no real piecing together or waiting for facts to be disseminated by either law enforcement or witnesses. It was just thrown out there.
Sean.
Yeah, Clint.
I have called in, I don't know how many times, but I'm about to throw my phone into the bear that chased me up this tree.
Hey, Clint, I'll call you off the air next time you drop.
I told you, dude. When we first found that shack that we're going to use, and you said this is perfect, I said I don't know. The signal's going to be sketchy. So when we're doing the show and Socko's locked in the cage, I don't know if it's going to be as good as we need to do. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm starting to get angry. I know.
I know. Well, you may have to switch from phone 1 to the super secret GPS satellite phone.
All right, I'm trying not to use the sat phone.
Well,
just because we just launched the satellite and it hasn't been fully tested yet.
Yeah, well, you know what? Sometimes you get to skip the spinning rims and really get to work on things. So
I skip the spinning rims all the time.
So I was given a little story on the media and how they've handled this a little bit.
I was actually able to listen in to some of it. I couldn't talk.
Yeah, well, we do that on purpose.
Well, then you nailed it.
But I know you have a whole list of facts that you've been working on the last few days that you want to kind of go down on how the incident started all the way through to what we know so far that is as close to facts until we actually get the investigative release from law enforcement.
Yeah, it's not that impressive, and it's really nothing more that's out here. But essentially, the officer Darren Wilson comes across these two individuals who are walking down the middle of the street, and some of the information that I've received, he does not know right away that they're involved in any kind of robbery or whatnot. And there's some kind of conflicting information about he tries to get them out of the street. They refuse to comply, kind of a thing. And as he is observing them, he recognizes some items, some Swisher Sweets and so forth that were taken from a robbery in the area. As he goes to get out of his vehicle to contact the individuals, who contacts Michael Brown and this other person. And by the way, I think I heard you discussing about how the media has portrayed this, and everything has been, or a lot of things have been, white cop shoots unarmed black teen, which, first of all, well, we'll get through the facts first, but I have some serious comments about the handling of that, and that's the kind of stuff which is why we have race issues here in this country, right there, because that just feeds it. But anyways, as the officer goes to get out of the car, he's immediately attacked. They try and kick the door shut on him. He comes under attack, and now they're fighting him inside his patrol vehicle. And you and I have both had the opportunity to look inside patrol cars. We've interviewed a couple of officers and so forth with some of the stories we've done in the past, and we know that there are weapons in the vehicle. It's a very confined space. They have computers in there, shotguns. Some agencies have rifles inside the cars. It's very, very confined, and fighting from that position can be difficult at best, particularly when you're being attacked by this individual, Mr. Brown, who is, according to reports, 6'4", 292 pounds.
Yeah, just a little kid.
Yeah, he's just a poor little kid. And then the officer feels his gun being pulled on. So now they're trying to take his gun, and look, I submit if somebody's trying to take an officer's gun, it's because they're trying to arm themselves and probably do something very bad to it. The officer, according to reports that came out today, suffered severe injuries, including a broken eye socket, and major facial injuries, was almost knocked unconscious. And look, when the individuals attempt to get away, he got out of the car. He has a duty to act. He doesn't have to retreat. He has a duty to try and take these individuals into custody. They just committed a felony assault on a cop with major injury, and he gets out to try and take them into custody, give chase, whatever it is he's going to do his duty. He's still, he didn't hide or run away or flee from his duty. He's still trying to do his job and take these two dangerous individuals into custody. And
he could have very well had an altered level of consciousness at that point too, depending on how hard he was struck in the head.
Well, yeah, and then, but according to some information, Michael Brown then attempts to charge the officers, ignores orders. Now, look, if this individual is now charging him, 6'4", 292 pounds, he's already knocked you almost unconscious, has caused major facial injury, and has already attempted to take your gun, I submit that individual has already tried to kill you. And now he is charging disobeying orders and continuing that aggression. The officer fired. And if that's the case, if those facts turn out to be true, then that is a justifiable homicide. That is a good shooting. What else is that officer supposed to do?
Right.
If that is not the case,
He's still here.
He's just garbly. I think what Clint was going to say is if that's not the case, then let's see what the facts are, and go from there, and let's disprove it. There's also a video that was released that does support that set of facts. There was a video of the initial crime scene within just a few minutes of it happening. Somebody was taking a cell phone video of Mr. Brown's body, the blood trail, and there was these two guys off to the side who I don't think they knew the camera was running. And I saw it on, I think I saw it through Twitter, and I want to say it was Super Mexican that tweeted it. But it's everywhere now, and this just came out 2 or 3 days ago. And these guys were describing what happened. Again, not giving a statement. They were reprising the incident back and forth. And they were saying how the initial attack happened. He was ordered to the ground, and then he turned around. He started to charge back at the police officer, and that's when the shots were fired. And it wasn't the first couple shots that he stopped. He actually kept going, and it wasn't, now we know through the autopsy, it was most likely the one shot to the head, and it was shot number 5 or 6, was most likely the shot that was lethal. And again, 6'4", 230 pounds, you have to start talking about inertia. If this
292 pounds.
Oh, even more so, 292 pounds. This guy starts getting a running start at you, and his weight alone is going to carry him another 10 feet. So if you're returning fire, and I don't know what kind of pistol he had, but it doesn't matter. You're returning fire on a pistol, and you're shooting at a 300-pound individual. Yeah, it may take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shots to put it down, and it had to be done. And Clint, while you were off the line, I was talking about the 2 individuals on the recording. There was somebody doing a cell phone recording of the crime scene. 2 individuals were off talking to the side. That supports the story of Officer Wilson.
Yeah.
And he essentially said that they attacked him in the car, and they didn't know they were being recorded. I mean, it's a complete. They have a term for it, but they were just talking, and it very much supports the evidence that's being presented there. You did have the autopsy that was done by the city, and then that secondary autopsy that the family hired, who is a headhunter, if you will. He's the equivalent of an ambulance-chasing attorney. At first, he was very, he was shot. There was shots to the back, et cetera, and then all of a sudden he came out. He's like, well, I can't really say that there were shots to the back. It just maybe looked like it because the evidence was presented to the contrary, and it's factual. So
right. Well,
again,
maybe there were shots to the back, but I don't really know because I'm a plastic surgeon.
I'm a podiatrist.
Right. Right. I do Botox. So.
Yeah. If I'm not injecting anybody, I don't even know what's going on here.
Right.
But that's the problem, So, and everyone said, oh, they hired an outside. First of all, those folks didn't hire him. Somebody hired him on their behalf in order to make news. This guy came and did this autopsy. I don't know if you saw him, but he looks like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. Definitely the guy that you want to have be your pathologist. And everything that he said was, a half-truth or a most lie. Like, he was never 100% concrete in anything. One of the things he said is that there was a shot fired into the top of the kid's head at one point. And I don't know if it was the eye shot. I forget the direct quote. But he said the angle of the round was downward onto his head, almost intimating that he was bent over being beaten when the cop pulled his gun and shot him.
Right.
And I was watching a forensic expert earlier today who said that could very well have been the last shot when the kid was running and his body was starting to go down.
Right. Absolutely.
It could have been anything. So, this pathologist that they hired is Dr. Get Rich Quick. I forget his name. That's a big nothing. That's just a scam. Yeah, he's going to testify if it ever goes to trial, which is completely insane if it does go to trial, in my opinion. Now, Clint, and I know we were talking about this too, if there are charges filed against it, against this police officer, total kangaroo court, would you agree?
Absolutely. Completely politically motivated. Completely.
It's the Zimmerman case all over again. Only this is exactly what those Ken refers to them as race pimps on his show. Those further trying to push the theme of the whites are just trying to kill the blacks on a regular basis, and how this was totally racially motivated. It would play right into their hands. This is the person they wanted when they got Zimmerman, and they thought they had somebody like this. A strictly white police officer who attacked a completely innocent, unarmed black teen, as they said. And that was exactly, and they all showed up in full force. I mean, you had Al Sharpton out there. You had Governor Jay Nixon calling for an immediate indictment. All this stuff coming out. And I don't know if anyone else pays attention to stuff like this, but these investigations can take months. And so to be calling for an indictment 3 days after the incident is just absurd.
And it is, and I want to get into a little bit here. So we have this incident that goes down, and first of all, does any rational person, and I need to emphasize rational person, believe that we seriously have anybody on the police force, that it's so rampant that we as a country have law enforcement officers that are like, you know what, that is a black person. I am going to find a reason to kill them. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around that concept that people truly believe that there are not just cops, but anybody, or that it's rampant, or that it's so prevalent that there are any, because I'm not naive enough to think that there is nobody in the United States that would kill somebody based solely on race. There are idiots out there. Absolutely.
Animals.
However, there are people out there that think that a large majority of cops are just looking for a reason to shoot, beat, hurt, keep down minority individuals. And I can't wrap my head around that. And the media does not help. You touched on it a little bit at the beginning. You know, a white cop kills unarmed black teen. Mm-hmm. That is a headline a lot of different places. I saw that line in reports. If it wasn't in the headline, it was in reports all over the internet and on various news sources, some that purport to be reputable. And first of all, how inflammatory is that? What difference does it make, the race of the cop or the race of the person that was killed? If this was a black cop and a black person who was killed, if this was a white cop and a white person that was killed, or purple and purple, it does not matter. If the officer's actions are justified, then they're justified. He has a right, regardless of the race of the suspect or the race of the officer, to defend himself. That officer also has the obligation to conduct himself appropriately and to uphold and protect the rights of everybody, regardless of race. So why is it, and I know the answer to this, but I'm just more throwing this out there to audience, do we allow the media to get away with this crap and this sensationalizing and allow this baiting and this sensationalism, this white cop, black teen, and put those lines up and incite this? Because it does. Well, those headlines feed into the racial division of this country. If the headline was, and I don't care if it's a black cop that shot a white teen, it doesn't matter. If the headline includes the race, if race is part of the story, include it. If this white cop said, you know what, I'm white, KKK forever, and shot this black teen after calling him racial names, that's part of the story, hey, put it in there. I have no issue with that. But that's not the case here.
No, I know it's not the case at all. There's a great article on a website called themissingnich.com, TheMissingNiche.com. And the writer, her first name's Karen, she does a really great job of putting some facts together. And one of it is about police brutality. And she's talking about, and this was written just after the Ferguson incident, in 2010, 1,242 officers were involved in excessive force complaints. 0.14% of the 900,000 plus peace officers in the United States. Even if those figures go up by 10 times, it would be 1.4% of the police force that is the problem, essentially. And she goes on and on. And she gets her info from the Cato Institute. And she goes, I mean, you start reading down the facts, and it's mind-boggling. In that same year, 105 cops were killed in the line of duty, 30 were result of direct gunfire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those facts alone tell you, we talk about the peace officers, and like you said, there are some idiots in every job,
Yes.
And you're always going to have somebody who makes a horrible mistake, and I think of the BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit police officer, Johannes Messerly,
Yes.
in Oakland. You have those that just go out of their way to do something horrible. You do have those that
he didn't go out of his way to do something horrible. He made a horrible mistake.
Messerly. I said those who make horrible mistakes, and that was Johannes Messerly. There are police officers out there that do wrong, horrible things. I can recall an incident close to where I live where a police officer was abusing his power. But it's not rampant.
It's not, those officers should absolutely be held accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no problem with that. But we have this tendency to paint the man, if you will, as these power-hungry lunatics who do everything they can to sidestep the law. And, you see these videos all the time on the internet, and all they show you is the 15 seconds that looks bad. They never show you the 20 minutes before, the 5 minutes afterwards, or whatever. They just show you what's convenient. You have groups like Cop Watch in California who specifically edit video to make law enforcement officers look bad. And listen, you and I have talked about this a lot. We're not fans of the federal peace officers, with the exception of the U.S. Marshals, because they do really good work.
Yep.
But state and local police officers are a totally different animal. They have a job that they're tasked with that is absolutely out of control, and it's getting harder and harder. And listen, I've said before, I grew up, my dad was a police officer. And you watch what they go through today, and I have friends of mine who are in law enforcement, et cetera, and how much it's different. A lot of them don't even want to be there anymore. And now you have an incident like this go on, and it doesn't matter anywhere that you are. If you're a police officer, odds are you've been heckled in the last week and a half about something that you had nothing to do with.
Yep.
Something that people heckling you had nothing to do with. They're just trying to get a rise out of you. They're disrupting things going on just to make you look like a fool. I question why police officers these days are doing the job that they're doing versus trying to do a job that really pays well.
You know why? Because I think a large majority of them still believe that they're fighting the good fight.
No, I know. It's a different kind of cloth. I equate my friends in law enforcement now, and I do have a lot of friends back east who are in law enforcement. I equate it to the knights, noble knights of years past, King Arthur's time. That's what I equate it to now, is they're still doing it for the right reason. They start to do it for the right reason, and they stay doing it for the right reason. No matter what society does and beats them down. And listen, I have friends who can tell you horror stories about just ridiculous things that have been accused to them that have been unfounded, but it destroys who they are for a short period of time. So we as a society do not give enough credit to our friends in law enforcement. And we say it all the time, public safety in general, everyone who's out there trying to save lives. But in this particular incident, law enforcement, they just take the beatings, and it's sad. It really, really is sad. And when you go forth and you start seeing everything that's coming about and crazy things that people are saying about, like, they get into the whole militarization of law enforcement. I've heard people say that they should take their guns away, like all this stuff. And I said, I was talking to a buddy of mine back east when all this first happened, and I said, you know what? If I was a cop in Ferguson after about the fourth day listening to what the mayor said, what the governor said, all this other stuff, if I was that whole department, I would have resigned and walked away.
Yeah. Hey, here you go. You guys don't want a police department? Fine.
Yeah.
It's your community. You have a right not to have a police department.
Yep.
See ya.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go drive a bus or something. You know, and it's sad that we try to the legit tiny percentage of cops that are bad people, and like I said, it's less than 0.14% overall. Those people that are, I will say, bad people in uniform are the image for the entirety of it. Isn't that a form of racism or prejudice? Excuse me. That's a prejudice. People are being prejudiced against law enforcement, and there's no protection against it. And you know, I think it's so funny how much the left and the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, all those guys are talking about how this is a prejudice thing. This was an act of prejudice, a case of prejudice, blah, 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 blah. What they're doing to even the officers who weren't involved is an act of prejudice. And so they're absolutely propagating the exact thing that they say they're against. And we all know they're not against it.
No. They're not against that. They're against that for a specific group only.
Right. Exactly. So it's just absolutely ridiculous where it's gone to with that. And like I said, to our friends in law enforcement on a state and local level, and if you're a U.S. Marshal, you're a friend of mine.
Yeah. Hey, God bless you. Thank you for doing the job. If you're a Phoebe, if you're a FBI, well, then you go fuck yourself. Speaking of,
they're accountants with guns, from what my friend would say.
Speaking about that, hey, let's take a break. I know we're a couple minutes early, but when we get back, I want to get into to talking about the governor calling for quick prosecution and.
Absolutely. We're going to be back here in 3 on the Sackheads Radio Show. Sacco, play it. That's not playing us out.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Radio.
Radio.
Welcome back here to the Sackheads Radio Show. We appreciate you being with us. Check out all of our great talent here on the SHR Media Network, the Evan Miller Report, the Exceptional One himself, Rooster Crows at Night. Also, check out our writers. We have some great writers.
We do.
Dr. Arrington's always awesome. Rosie Dale, some other writers that'll be really good. Also, coming up, if you want to check out a really good show, our friend Egg, who's in the chat room, he's on Pundit Press Radio. Unpleasant Blind Guy is the name of his show, and there's a link right now to his little 13-minute show that he did on the 17th of August. Check him out. Tell him the Sackheads sent you. They're good friends of ours. Or he's a good friend of ours. He's always with us, and we appreciate his interaction. Thank you, everyone in the chat room. Iggy, Egg, Ken, Gulf, Sacco, and some other people that are in there. I really appreciate you guys being there. As Egg likes to say, go weird or go potato. There's nothing wrong with that. I like potatoes. So we were going in to talking about Ferguson prior to, and we're going to continue on with it. And Clint, am I taking up all your airtime?
He's there.
I know he's there.
He's just very quiet.
I know.
See, what happened was...
I'm here. I'm listening to you. What's the problem?
Oh, well, I didn't. You normally don't stay quiet for that long.
You know what? I think that my voice is so powerful and I'm so manly that I'm overloading the system when I'm talking. So I'm trying to modulate. I'm trying to, mellow it out a little bit. I'm trying to just tone down the awesomeness a little bit because I think I overload the system when I'm not in studio. You remember when Sacco had to tweak the mic and everything else at my station because of the awesome meter when he hooked it up was just exploded. Remember, it even blew the glass out. So I think me not being there and we haven't actually got anything really reinforced or anything. I think that's the problem. I think I've identified it because I got my tech hat on right now.
Yes, your tech hat that pretty much says I'm with Stu and has an arrow pointing straight down.
To Sacco's face. Or is it his mom? I don't know. Either way. So we haven't had a Sacco's mom joke in a while. It needed to be thrown in there.
Thanks.
Poor
Sacco. Kind of like his mom.
Back in your cage, Sacco.
That's the last time I ever let you speak to my mother again.
It's weird. She just blows my phone up. God. So the Missouri governor, Jay Nixon, he comes out and he says, quote, "A vigorous prosecution must now be pursued."
Against who?
Well, probably not against the dead guy. So, yeah, so here you have the governor of a state who I think is supposed to be about, law and order.
Or at least
and,
something to that effect,
to do
right?
The right thing, I think. Or at least something to that effect. And he immediately comes out and rushes to judgment saying a vigorous prosecution must now be pursued. So, curious choice of words. I note that it was not the facts must be vigorously pursued. Justice for all involved must be vigorously pursued. Because would justice not be if Michael Brown was in fact trying to kill the officer by getting his gun and he did conduct a felony battery with serious bodily injury and broken facial bones and so forth. If that was the case, would justice not be that the officer survived, he's vindicated, and he's allowed to go about his duty with the thanks of the citizenry he's sworn to protect, and the fact that he had to go through this traumatic physical and emotional trauma while he's trying to do his duty? Would that not be justice?
Absolutely.
And conversely, if he did in fact just execute this poor helpless kid, then justice would be he's held accountable, correct? And tried in criminal court and all that stuff. So why not say something like that? And I know the answer. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, it's quite simple because instead of, and I know you know where I'm going with this, but he's trying to appease the protesters and the people who are angry. And instead of, and again, it's a societal thing. Instead of, we appease everybody, no matter what the facts are, we try to make everybody happy all the time. And instead of coming out and say, hey, you know what? You absolutely have the right to protest if you feel this was erroneous. You absolutely have the right to speak your opinion. I will never say you can't do that. However, until the facts are released, I implore that you do not rush to a justice that is not, or what's the word I'm looking for? Don't rush to a decision. Don't make a decision before the evidence is presented.
Right.
And let us do our job, or let law enforcement do their job. We'll have, if you want us to have a state or outside agency or something like that, oversee so we know that there's no shenaniganry. I can understand that. But we have a job to do, and you cannot rush to judgment on something so serious. But he didn't.
So
He
here's
immediately.
why I would never be electable, Sean, and I know we're trying to work up to my campaign here. But
2015.
Here's why I'm not electable. Because I would come out, and if the facts were to absolve this officer, I'd say, hey, this officer did nothing wrong. We're not going to hold him accountable. Your actions by looting are not honoring anybody in this case, and it's criminal, and we're prosecuting all of you now also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Why coddle
listen,
them?
I remind people that in most states, looters can still be shot. You could still be shot for looting. And, the amount of issues that have come up with all these incidents, law enforcement shot upon the other night. There was 2 people shot in the crowd that were supposed to be together. They've had all these incidents. You had the store that the initial robbery, strong arm robbery that Brown is alleged to have committed on the video has been destroyed essentially. It's one of the things that's sad that and when you come out against it, everyone says, oh, free protest and you're a conservative. You're supposed to be all about freedom of speech. But I am. And I absolutely, the people that are walking down the street holding signs, holding a peaceful protest, I support their right to do that. If they feel that there's a wrong done and they want to express their opinion, feel free. You have that right as an American. And I will support that to the day I die. But you do not have your rights end when they start impeding on other people's rights. And when you're looting, you're rioting, you go crazy, you throw Molotov cocktails at law enforcement. When you attack protesters from the opposite side with violence, which happened tonight and it happened last night, you had pro-law enforcement supporters that were protesting in favor of Officer Wilson and essentially saying, let him get his day in court if you will, or let the investigation go. They were supporting him. That had to be protected.
And even if they don't support him, even if they just support the process, right?
No, but this happened. This is a fact. The people that
I know, but
I understand what you're saying, but I definitely agree with that theory. But this is what happened: is that there were people there to counter protest that were attacked to the point that the police had to evacuate them from the area for their own safety. That is not peaceful protest. That is not trying to remember somebody who's fallen and trying to turn what you believe to be a bad into a good. That is not, quote unquote, progress. That is absolutely
it is in their mind, though.
Well, okay, so I don't even agree with that. Like I said, I feel
it is. That's progress, right? They want to flip. They want to flip it, stand everything on its head. I mean that's what it's about, or just a reason to go out and loot and act like an ass.
Right, and I get so frustrated. Earlier this week I said to someone, I'm like, you know what? People that don't want cops, let's just pick a few states that won't have law enforcement in it, and say, no, there's going to be secret state, special states that don't have police. You guys figure it all out, and go. And those of us who want to live in a civilized
we'll start with California and New York.
And that's the problem is, you're right. Progress to them is this almost archaic society where everybody wins and everyone gets what they want and they have the right to loot those stores because the rich people that own those stores have something that I deserve just for showing up. It doesn't matter how hard they worked. I think of the poor guy who was choke slammed, and essentially he was choke slammed into the wall when those cigars were taken. And you looked at how small he was, and I look at that guy. You look at the amount of courage in that little man's body, and he was 5'0", 90-something pounds. When he tried to confront a 6'4", 292-pound man, he knew he could get hurt, and he still did it because
you mean when he confronted an unarmed black youth?
Yes, exactly. But he still was willing to risk his hide, if you will, over a couple cigars. And you can't tell me it's about the $4 or whatever that it cost him. It's about the principle. And I would submit that he was attacked over his principles. Yeah, he was attacked over property. It was cigars. But it was his principles that made him confront that guy instead of just standing there and letting that guy name that he wasn't going to be intimidated. And and he got hurt in the process. Not bad, fortunately for him. And Egg in the chat room said we have to find that guy's name. He is a hero in the story. I agree. Because he was confronting a giant. And, where's the media covering that? Where's the media covering the fact that he was trying to protect his store?
Here. It's right here.
Right. And that's it. I mean, you don't hear it anywhere else. He's got a story to tell. And there are people who are arguing that video shouldn't matter, that video, blah, blah, blah. No, that video matters a lot, actually.
Yeah, because it shows the state of mind of this giant.
Absolutely.
This violent giant.
Absolutely. And it also shows why he immediately attacked the peace officer, because he knew he was going to he knew he committed a robbery, and he thought the cop knew he committed a robbery, and the cop knew something was going on. He didn't necessarily put it all together yet, so he was going to attack before he was brought to jail. And I really think that was his mindset. And I've heard people say, oh, he could have tased him. But listen, you have somebody that is 6'4", 292 pounds coming at you. You're not going to take a chance with something that may or may not work. When your life
the taser does not take the the place of deadly force.
Right.
It can't. It doesn't.
None of that stuff.
I mean, it's no.
And now I also want to talk on Governor Nixon essentially pulling the Ferguson Police Department out of the protests, and bringing in the State Patrol to oversee it, and the National Guard.
And who in Ferguson allowed that to happen? Because that's not his call to make.
That's not his call to make. And I want to see, if the Ferguson police chief, who I've heard him talk a few times, he seems like a fairly intelligent man. But I want to know if he said, hey, you know what, we're going to remove ourselves in an effort of goodwill to try to get the protest to stop, because it doesn't matter if we're right or wrong. If by removing our officers it settles things down, then we'll do that. I can respect that. I don't necessarily think it's the right decision, but if he did it hey, you know what, we know public opinion's all backwards right now and upside down. We're going to do this in an effort to save lives and save property and make things safe.
Okay,
that
I'll
I
give
can
him that.
respect. But if it was political pressure, and it was the governor saying, no, you need to make this decision the way we make it, or, I don't know, we're going to cut funding, or I will make sure through your mayor that your contract's not renewed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's weird. It's almost like that Missouri governor should be indicted for some sort of political charge. Oh, wait. Impeached. You see what I did there? You see how I brought it all the way back to our opener?
No, you pretty much nailed it. I saw it. I was with you the whole time, too. I was watching it. Right? It was like the ball sailing over my head into the end zone.
Ag in the chat room says it would take a power plant to tase a guy like that size down. You could do it fast if you hooked up the taser to the patrol car's batteries. Quick update from Ken is that there is, you didn't know this, Clint, and this is why, we should read into laws a little bit more. There is only vigorous prosecution in Missouri. So that's why he said that. That's the only type of prosecution is vigorous. So that definitely puts a different spin on what the governor said now. That's apparently state law, which is good. And Ken in the chat room is also saying, for the far left black culture, this case is the saving grace of the Obama tears. And, you know, that was the other thing. I talked at the beginning of the show about how the president couldn't get off Martha's Vineyard. He couldn't get off the vineyard, as we like to call it back home, to go and pay respects to the highest-ranking military official who died in combat since Vietnam. But he could sure as hell find a plane to leave the vineyard and come all the way back to have a press conference about this and make sure that he got his 5 minutes of fame. You want to talk about feeding the beast. You want to talk about the people and their outrage, whether it's right or wrong, and why they do things like this and the attention that it gets. You have the president who essentially said to the country, the highest-ranking military official is not that important. But just like the Cambridge police was stupid, just like he has a son like Trayvon, any chance that he possibly can get involved in some sort of racial incident and put himself to the front, he's never going to miss an opportunity. It's like Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good tragedy go to waste. That's exactly what
and not just insert himself in anything. It's insert himself into race versus law enforcement.
Yes, again. This is from the beginning of his thing. There's the whole thing with the Cambridge Police Department, which, again, and we talked about that when it happened, I believe, Clint. I have a friend who works on that department that tells you that the story that was brought out and the whole beer summit and everything was so far from the truth, and the truth was never really allowed to escape. And that's exactly what's going to work. That's what's going to happen here. And you look at the Trayvon thing. This is... Again, this is the president trying to further divide the nation through race. On
so here you have Holder now coming out, right?
Well,
you have you have the Justice Department, probably the FBI, who's going to do an investigation, and they're going to do an investigation for probably civil rights violations.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what they're going to. What else could they charge? Right? They don't have the right to investigate the state level, really.
So they're going to investigate civil rights violation, and Holder is going to damn near demand charges be filed in this case. And even if there's no conviction, he's going to put this cop, through the ringer. Now, I want to know if the Missouri Attorney General is going to defend this officer if it turned out that this officer's actions were lawful and proper. Because if so, then I believe the Attorney General would be the defense attorney for the officer. So I want to know if you're going to have the state AG defending the officer in a federal case because they acted lawfully according to state law.
And let's look at this for a few minutes here. Let's look at the federal government again stepping in on a local issue before we even know what the facts are, and immediately a civil rights issue comes up. And the Attorney General, who is quote-unquote, and I never agree with this, I think this is such an awful thing, but everyone says he's the highest, and I've said it before too, highest law enforcement agent in the land, in the country.
That's the biggest slap in the face to law enforcement.
I know. Who's going to insert himself, and he lands on the plane, you know, the government plane, and there's news and press and media there, and then he vows, I'm going to put 40 FBI agents, and we're going to start interviewing people. You know, again, have you ever watched the first 24? All the evidence that comes out now is completely jaded. You're going to have people that weren't even there that say that they saw the whole thing and this happened and that happened. You could throw 500 agents on the ground. You are not going to get a true depiction on the incident because so much has been leaked in the media. This is such a national incident. You're going to have those people who are absolutely going to do it for fame, who are and I always think of the young lady who was on the stand during the Trayvon incident. You're going to have people that just want to get even with somebody, so they're going to lie and cheat and steal, if you will. And now this is all going to be submitted to the record. And that, to me, is insane. The fact that he could say, we're going to talk to people and find all the evidence and blah, 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 blah. 6 days later, you can't do that.
Well, I mean, he can try and conduct an investigation. Listen, it's the Fed. They don't know how to do a homicide investigation. They don't know how to.
They can't even prosecute themselves.
And when you said you could throw 500 federal agents on the ground, is that because they're a bunch of sissies and you could literally throw 500 agents on the ground?
Federal agents on the ground.
You'd have like pocket protectors falling out all over the place.
But this is the guy who wouldn't even step aside and let an investigation be done after he was held in contempt.
Scientific calculators falling out on themselves.
It's seriously going to look like an economics class exploded on the street.
Slide rules all over.
But it's insane to me that all of a sudden this is the saving grace. And listen, we've seen this. This is what the president does. He inserts his number one man, if you will, into an incident that he has no right being in. Ken's in the chat room saying T-squares, baby, T-squares. That's like their swords. They put that through their belt, and that's what they fence with. The incident cannot be conducted cleanly, or investigation cannot be conducted cleanly when you're starting to pull in statements 6 days after the fact. Because I'll tell you right now, there are people that are so angry that they will do everything they can to make sure that that's jaded. Now you're going to have 500 people all of a sudden on an interview list who all have statements that are against the police officer, and you're going to have 3 or 4 statements maybe who are for the statements of the police officer. Meanwhile,
maybe, but I don't know that's going to be. I don't know that's the case, Sean. You already have a lot of people. You have more people coming out on the side of the officer saying, you know what? The officer was getting his butt kicked inside that car.
Right.
You know, so I don't know that you're necessarily going to have. I mean, you'll definitely, don't get me wrong, you'll definitely have more people coming out and false witnesses, absolutely, and you're going to have to weed those out. But I think you'll have more people coming out in support of the cops saying, no, you know what, this isn't right.
But now that the Attorney General is involved and the federal government is involved, we all know there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he sways the way the president wants things to go. And if the president says, hey, you know what, this looks really bad for society, you're now looking at a completely jaded investigation. And if I was and I know I'm not, if I was the governor, I would say, hey, listen, let us do our investigation. And if we find, just like it usually is, if we find there's a tremendous civil rights violation, we will contact your local federal prosecutor to begin the investigation. Stay out. This has nothing to do with you. Stay out.
Yeah, but this governor, though, is a Dem and wants to get reelected. He won't say that.
And that's exactly where it is. And once again, using politics in lieu and using or abusing the criminal justice system for politics. And it's happening once again. And that's the sad part. And the problem is lamestream media, Fox, all those other people are being completely complicit. And it's so funny.
And Fox is actually pumping out more stories about, and so are some other networks. They're pumping out some stories right now.
Yeah, you know why?
But at first it was all about.
Go ahead. Sorry. The majority the majority of the people who should be watching that and getting more truth and knowledge of the incident aren't.
Mm-hmm.
It's 6 days after the fact. Their mind is made up. Listen, this Darren Wilson, this Officer Wilson, his life is destroyed. It doesn't matter if he was 100% correct. His life is destroyed. His career is destroyed. His family is destroyed. And, you know, I want to say, and I don't use this often, but I want to say, damn CNN. And I say it all, I don't like CNN, but to screw them and to hell with them, because 4 days after the incident, after they dredged through Facebook and paid people to try to find this Officer Wilson, when his name first got released, they show up in front of his family home, knowing he's a marked man by some people. There are people that if they could get to him, he would be dead right now, and it doesn't matter. And they're going to stand in front of his house and report and give away. And I go back to the Zimmerman trial when there were celebrities tweeting his alleged address of George Zimmerman for people to get an opportunity to kill him. Now, I don't want to let the good people of Ferguson down that may try to do harm to Officer Wilson, he's not in the state anymore. Just so you know, he's nowhere to be found. So don't go messing with his family. Don't try to think you're a hero. It's nothing. But you know what? God damn CNN for doing that. That is horrible.
And you know what? They should, if anything happens to his family or to him, they should be held liable for that.
Absolutely. And you know what? I would even, we'll start with civilly liable. I don't know the Missouri Code or their crimes and laws, but I bet you could actually charge that reporter with some sort of criminal activity. And that's the other thing that has really come up with this whole Ferguson thing is there's been a couple reporters that have been arrested. And listen, we're media. We're big fans of the First Amendment. But when you're in a riot and a looting situation and a peace officer tells you to move, you're in
a crime scene.
You're in a crime scene. Your First Amendment of being in media, photojournalist or reporter or whatever, does not supersede when the public safety is at risk. And if you're impeding the investigation... What supersedes it is a crime scene. Is the only thing that supersedes it, because they can go to disaster areas. But if you have a riot where weapons are being discharged, I submit that's a crime scene, and you have an obligation to get out of there. Absolutely. And failing, and I've dealt with media in the past on certain things, and I've seen how they are, and mine was not at all criminal based. It was absolutely just like, hey, we want to get in there into an office or whatever. The media has this bizarre thing that they can overstep any law and are completely indemnified from being prosecuted. And I got bad news for you. It doesn't work that way. You're still a citizen. They're not saying, hey, you can't stand here and report or you can't report. They're not taking away their right to report. They're criminally prosecuting them for interfering with the police activity. And we can argue, and again, I understand the First Amendment, and I'm a big supporter of it, but when you're creating more of a hazard in your conduct...
See, I think that's a fine line. I understand what you're saying, but if media has a right to go into disaster areas that are closed to everybody else, then the only thing that can exclude them is
and of course, as soon as he was getting to his point, and I understand what he's saying, and I'm not saying that media should not be allowed there. I'm not saying media should not be in the vicinity, but the best I could tell, those reporters that were arrested were immediately, is that my signal? Were in immediate vicinity of the activity, and they were interfering. And that's something that the media shouldn't be able to do as well. Listen, we are up against a break. When we come back, we are going to move along. We do want to talk about the incident with the American photojournalist, Mr. Foley, being beheaded by ISIS, and really what this does for the incident that's going on in Iraq right now, and how the president's going to respond. We're going to be back here in 3 on the Sackheads Radio Show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Radio.
Welcome back here to the Sackheads Radio Show. We appreciate you being with us this evening here on the SHR Media Network. Make sure you check out our excellent friends here on SHR, including Ken McClinton, the exceptional one himself, the amazing one. I have other great names that he pays me to say. The Evan Miller Report.
Wait, he's paying you?
Yeah, he's paying me direct.
I'm going to have a talk with this guy.
So I'm getting, just before we, and I really, I'm going to get into the beheading, but a little bit of humor going into something so tough. I'm getting beat up on social media because I put up a picture of the Titanic that's going towards an iceberg. And it says,
oh, yeah.
and it says, Titanic be like, I nominate all passengers to the Ice Bucket Challenge. Now, first of all, if you haven't heard of the Ice Bucket Challenge, I took it earlier this week. It's a great cause to raise money for ALS. It's everywhere. Everyone's seen it. But second of all, it's not like the Titanic just happened. It's not like I'm the first person to make a joke about the Titanic. And that's a funny one. I don't care who you are. That joke's funny. Clint, don't you agree?
Yeah.
He's like, where am I at? Yes.
I just can't believe I'm taking a hit for that from my friends. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, Sean, to be fair,
Basically, you're the Titanic, and they're the iceberg. And the Titanic is acting like Socko's mom going down. Look, it's good that it all comes together.
you're just a sausage, and you
man.
know, and Clint's the eggs.
Wait, what? What?
Wait, what?
Moving on. So, a tragedy out of Syria. I'm sorry, out of Iraq.
Beeline.
I know it's so hard to make a jump like that, but where a photojournalist from New Hampshire, Mr. Foley, who was taken hostage, I think, or captive, I say hostage, 4 months ago over in Syria while he was covering the events. He's actually been taken hostage once before in a war zone, too. He's a very seasoned photojournalist. He's there doing what, and again, I'm going to slam the media on my last segment, but I'm also going to commend the media because a lot of them do put themselves in harm's way, so you get the story that needs to come out. But he was beheaded the other day by ISIS extremists with a warning to the president, essentially, to stop involving or have America be involved in Iraq, stop the bombings that we've done the last few days. And he was murdered on video, and that was sent to the public for everyone to view. A horrific crime. And I know Ag is going to have a lot to talk about, our good friend Ag, because this is right up his wheelhouse. But, you know, a terrible, absolutely terrible act of murder and a threat to the U.S. in general. Stay out. You don't belong here. This is our incident. You do it again, and this is going to keep going. They also have somebody else being held captive that it could very well be executed by the same thing. Now, it really, really, really brings to question what does the president do
Why have
next?
we not turned that entire area into a glass parking lot?
Yeah.
Why have we not superheated that entire area?
Big lead dome.
I thought that's what I'm sorry. I just came back in. I thought that's the question you were going to ask. I apologize.
Well,
Too
first
soon?
and foremost, no. First and foremost, it shows once again the animals these guys are. All accounts, it doesn't matter, even if he was a jerk, but all accounts is that Mr. Foley was a very good young man. He was a very friendly young man. He really loved what he did because he thinks he gets the story to the world that some people would never see. And he took a lot of pride in what he did. And to be tragically cut down in his youth, and now it's so prevalent that his family...
No pun intended.
Yes, at all. But his
No,
family,
I know. I had to throw that out there, though, in case somebody on the left said, oh, tasteless sackhead made fun of the Titanic, and then said this.
Right. I know. It's always a choice of words. But, now this video is out there for his family to see, and I've watched the video. And the two things that really stood out to me, first of all, they were talking directly to the president. So it's very, very, very safe to say that he was murdered as a direct statement of the president. But number two, his executor spoke with a very clear, almost British accent, which really was alarming to me. Because it once again draws into something that we in this country try to block out, that these extremists could very well be the person living next door.
Yes.
And it begs to argue that if the Brits will go over, or anyone would go over there to act, it really, if you don't think that they're already here waiting for an opportunity, you're crazy.
Of course they are.
This is the guy next door. And
who's to say they couldn't grab somebody here and take them all over there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's something that I think is the second most alarming thing about the video. I mean, the first one's obviously how horrific it was. But the second is it really shows you that it's not, we have this mindset in this country that the Islamic extremists are these brown people in the Middle East killing each other over land. Like, that's really what a lot of people think that this is all about. And they've still yet to catch on that they are everybody that believes in the mindset that if you're not Islamic, you need to die, and that they own and control that entire region, and they're killing people by the masses. They're murdering people by the masses, and it's only a matter of time, and I've said this before, folks, I'll say it again, before it starts here. And it's frightening. But it also brings up the fact of what is the president's response going to be?
I think that's an excellent question. This president is not one. Look, his foreign policy is weak. We've talked about it numerous times. I know what I think it should be. I think that we should go after all known ISIS locations and strongholds with a fury. Turn the entire area and level it. Look, it's. I'm not big on bombing innocent women and children by any stretch of the imagination. However, I also understand that sometimes collateral damage occurs in combat, and while it's unfortunate, it's the reality of what war is. If we have American citizens, and they're threatening to do it to another one too, we have American citizens that are being kidnapped, made to read statements, and then beheaded in a very, very gruesome manner. We know they're going to do it again. This is not the first American who's been beheaded by extremists, Islamic extremists. And I think we need to act very, very aggressively. I think that you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful about pussyfooting around too much. Well, we're not going to attack them there because that's a mosque. Well, we're not going to attack them there because, there's a school right next door.
You just have to go in and do it.
You have to go in and do it because that is the only thing they understand. And it goes back to Jefferson. Look, Jefferson sent troops to Tripoli because our people, our citizens were being attacked and killed and made into slaves by the Tripoli pirates, the Islamic extremists. It's documented. Nobody wants to talk about it in history. We've been fighting this literally since the foundation of our country. And what happened when we stopped paying tribute? When we stopped paying tribute to them, when they stopped screwing with us for a little while, is when Jefferson sent Marines over there and kicked butt. That's what stopped it, and that's what stops it every time. Obama can't be weak. We cannot have a weak foreign policy when we're dealing with terrorists or this organization. And I think you just have to go and kill terrorists. I mean, look,
you have to speak
war
to
is
them
never good. War is never pretty. I don't wish war on anybody, but this is going to continue to happen. Innocent Americans are going to continue losing lives. Innocent people are until this is stopped. And again, while some of the collateral damage may be tragic, in the long run, it will save lives. It will save American lives. It will save lives of foreign nationals and foreign peoples from oppression, other things that fall under everything that those groups seem to institute when they get into power. That's what I think needs to be done, and I think there can be a direct tie made to U.S. personal safety on this. Not only U.S. interests, but also individual American citizens' safety. So while I'm not one to want to get involved as a policeman in all the world's affairs, I do think that this is a situation that we need to act very, very forcefully, very, very swiftly, and take action on. Now that's my opinion. I don't think this president will do that. I think this president will want to try and sound more, we need to take a scalpel and really be sure and do it very, very surgically. Bullshit, that's not going to work.
And cut the shoestrings of the military, and then you send in a drone. That's what he wants to do with the scalpel, the same thing that's always been. It's sad that there are reports, and it's so funny because for a president who said the boots will never be on the ground again, reports are coming out today that there was an attempt to try to rescue Mr. Foley recently by Navy SEALs in Syria that was unsuccessful. Again, the decision needs to be made. Are we going to sit here and tolerate this? Are we going to sit there and retaliate through bombs? A friend of mine said, why isn't there a B-52 circling at all times? And when something like this happens, they just unload. Here you go. Have a good day. Unload. Or do we start going in and trying to get these particular players and take them out for good one way or the other? And this is one of those times that, like you said, I don't necessarily agree with military action, but we have to do something. This cannot go without a response. If this goes without a response, it's just another chalk line under the weak category for the president. This is an American citizen, doesn't matter what his job was, who was murdered by ISIS extremists in the name of Allah as a direct threat to our country and a warning. And it's not something that needs to be taken lightly. And I've had several uber liberal friends in social media who and a couple of them took it down because they started taking a hit, but who said, you know what, I'm all for eye for an eye right now. And that tells you how serious this is. When some of my most liberal friends are saying that these people need to die instead of get a hug, that tells you what a big deal this is.
It does.
I'm not kidding. And, a former friend of mine, he's still a friend of mine, but a guy who I have great respect for, and he's a liberal, and that's fine. We talk about politics all the time. He's not a jerk about it. He just has different beliefs. he posted that almost immediately. It's time for eye for an eye, and I immediately said, "Go sharpen your sword," and he said, "Yeah." And that tells you how serious this particular incident is right now. And
so let me ask you, and I'm throwing this out there. I'm throwing this out there strictly as strictly as a hypothetical. So before all the liberals blow their freaking mind, they'll look like that Cabbage Patch Kid, Adam Bomb, or whatever the hell his name was, right? With his mind blowing up. But
yes.
What would the world do if American military took one of the terrorists out of Gitmo, dressed them in a green jumpsuit, and said this person's been sentenced to death, so we still give them the full, like, they went through the entire gamut, right? They were found, they were sentenced to die, military tribunal, court, whatever, and we beheaded them. We carried out the sentence on the internet, and we sent the video over to ISIS. What would the world say about America?
Oh, we'd be monsters. We would be absolute monsters. We'd be the evil. And can you talk about what violence that would incite in this country? And it would, right, wrong, or indifferent. There would be retaliatory attacks in this country from extremists on average citizens repeatedly until the president apologized.
It would, and I want to be clear. I understand that America is a different country. That's not something that I would advocate for. Okay, we're different. We have morals. We are a country of ethics. We were founded on Judeo-Christian values, whether people want to admit that or not. There is a right and a wrong. That would be wrong. America does not conduct itself that way. Okay, that being said, but just to show you the hypocrisy here, if we sent a video like that to I think that the military should get Hollywood because they're so good at stuff, right? And come up with a movie and however they have to do it, because they make horror films, right?
Yeah.
And just like show the beheading of like 20 all actors, right? All makeup and done
sure every
up.
film Michael Moore's ever made is a horror film.
But it just looks so real, right? And just behead a bunch of them and then send that video and say, hey, next time you behead one of ours, we're going to do this again to 20 more of yours. And it's all bullshit, right? It's all just makeup and smoke and mirrors. But how awesome would that be? like you think ISIS would just be like, oh, they're crazier than us.
Right. When simple fact of the matter is we forget in this country, we have this amazing tendency to look at ourselves, especially with incidents like what's going on in Ferguson, and then every sort of action that we take overseas, et cetera, et cetera. In this country, we look at ourselves like we are monsters for doing what we have to do to survive sometime. And that's how we look upon ourselves. So I can't imagine how the outside world looks at us. And I can't imagine if that video was made, how many people in this country would lose it before it even made it to ISIS. But a message needs to be sent.
And rightfully so.
Right. And they should be outraged because we would never do that and I would never support that.
Right.
But again, this is a message to the president. Why don't you try to win one back? We all know you're weak, and we all know you're kind of a coward, and you have no foreign policy whatsoever. Why don't you try to win back a little bit of credibility? And listen, this could help you right now with Putin and stuff like that if you got serious about this incident tomorrow.
Okay, so here's what would be great. If the president of the United States sends a video in response, right? He's in the Oval Office, he's talking, and I want to respond to the video that y'all sent me. And he stands up and he unzips his fly and he urinates on the jihad flag, the ISIS flag. and then he sets fire to it. And as he's watching it burn, he looks at the camera and says, you just fucked with the wrong country. We're coming after you. And then, like, the video stops. And, like, the American flag's waving in the background with, like, F-22s flying by.
You know what? I would absolutely give him all the credit in the world if he had the audacity to do that. I know it's not very statesmanlike, but at this point, let's face it, he's never going to be a statesman. So he might as well go with something that's going to stick, right? I mean, he might as well go.
Dude, if he did that, he might be, even though I disagree with all of his politics, that might be my favorite presidential moment of all time.
Well, it would certainly change why I want to have a beer with them, and we've talked about it before. I'd sit and have a beer with the president tomorrow, but it would change. Like that would be no longer wanting to sit with him and have a beer and talk about his politics and stuff like that, and it would be more about taking him out and doing shots, like shots of Jaeger, nonstop. Like that would just be a complete bachelor party hangout.
Did you just call me?
Saka woke up. That would be so awesome. Everyone in the chat room's agreeing, dude, if he did that, that would almost make up for his whole presidency. Ken said we could sick Pelosi on them. It's true, though. I think, can you imagine? Even conservatives would be like, all right, dude, you know what? High five. I'm going to give you mad props for that. Wishful thinking. 2015, though, President Clinton has a chance, or future President Clinton. President-elect Clinton, can we call you that yet?
I think you call me presidential hopeful.
Presidential hopeful Clinton running in 2015.
For the Sackhead Party.
The Sackhead Party. I think that would be something that would come out of your administration.
There's going to be beer. It's going to be a great party. Beer, pools. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, the Sackhead Party is where you're going to want to be when you vote and when you're not voting, as a matter of fact. I think if the Sackhead Secretary of Defense was here, Rooster, I think he would agree that would be the appropriate act. So I think that would be perfect. And just have it be completely over the top, like literally, like just like chicks in bikini walking around with like sparklers as he's doing it. You know what I mean? Just like guys doing, just whatever, backflips, wrestling a bear, like doing.
First of all, you just said chicks, and on this show we use the term broads.
I'm sorry, broads and bikinis. My apologies. Apologies. Just little things like that. Like just have it be just a completely like America moment.
Right, like red, white, and blue bikinis, stripper poles.
Oh yeah, he's wearing like an Uncle Sam outfit.
Like Apollo Creed.
Like Apollo Creed. Wait, Ken, is that racist or funny?
Oh, hell no, that's funny.
Ken says we need to have a little bit more respect, please. Chicks is for his show. That's I know. We use broads on our show. I apologize, Ken.
Yeah, we use broads. I corrected him, Ken.
Fortunately, I think the only active female that listens is Iggy, and she's got a better sense of humor than all of us. So I'm not sweating that too much.
No. That's not true. That is not the only female that listens.
I know, and
we have another female. We have another outstanding female supporter of ours, Shannon.
We do.
Who listens.
We do. Shannon listens to us. I'm sorry if you're not in the chat room, Shannon. You go out of sight, out of mind. Iggy's always in our chat room, so she's right there at the forefront of our mind. I'm just saying.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Shannon can't jump in the chat room because she's a closet conservative. Like I think she believed that she was liberal at one point until she realized that common sense is actually conservative.
She is so gonna light us up on Twitter now. No. But so what? Be in the chat room. Even if you're a liberal, come to our chat room and engage. That's what it's all about. It's about open conversation. You know what, Sako, can you do, this is your assignment for the week. Can you do a drawing of what that would look like? That setup, Iggy says she uses the word broads too, of the president, maybe with his back to the picture, taking a leak on the black jihadist flag, right?
Okay.
And have just as American as you can get. Broads with bikinis, all that stuff that we've been talking about. See if you can come up with something for next week, would you?
And a song.
And a song.
And a song.
Okay.
Like turn the scene into almost like one of those animated cartoon things with some ridiculous song that he's singing while he's doing it.
I'd love to do that, but you guys just keep me in this cage.
Now
it's really hard to work with.
Now the cage comes out. I see how it is. All the ideas are start. Ag says we got to add bacon, smokes, and babes in there somewhere. We got babes.
So basically, you guys want to.
We have to ride. wait, NRA sticker, so we have to have shotguns and ARs.
Yep. Cigarettes, that's not a problem. He's a smoker. Also, Ag says that if he's drinking Red Stripe, that's cool as long as he's eating bacon to wash it down. I'm okay. I like Red Stripe. It's a good beer. Ken says he has to use a limp wrist, though, when he's drinking Red Stripe. Ken is just relentless. Maybe have Biden hold it for him. Well, if you're going to have all those broads and bikinis, you're going to have Biden there. There's no doubt in my mind. Even if he's not supposed to be there, he's going to end up just like walking on stage. So it's going to happen one way or the other. I think this would be a good thing for the country to get around. I really do. I think this is a good way to unify us, get behind the president on something, and really send a message. And most of all, have him like live contact when he's done. You know, you can pipe in the sound from inside the bomber, whichever one, B-52, whatever. Biden's going to have a shotgun in the chat room, agreed. And just as soon as he's done, he could say, all right, Captain, launch him. And you can just hear, it's away. All right, come on home, son. I got a beer for you. I think that would just be an awesome American moment. I really do. It'd be so different. It would probably be the only thing that this guy I would give him credit for. Have Biden use a shotgun that shoots out red, white, and blue confetti. I love that. This is why I love our listeners, and this is why I love the people that actually get us. Is all the topics that we talked about, we were so serious at the beginning, and everyone was commenting and really engaged and intelligent in the chat room. And then all of a sudden, you come up with some harebrained idea, right? And the entire mood of the mood has changed completely in the chat room. Like, everyone's happy, jovial. That's what we need. We need that change. Think about our chat room is a great dissection of society. All the topics we covered earlier, light humor here and there, but it was very serious and everyone was very involved. Then we get something like this, and everyone in the chat room, spirits lifted. You could see how much more happy they were. Everyone's having so much more fun. And I think it shows you what the potential, even the thought of getting behind a real leader is like.
Exactly, and that's why everybody gets behind Sackheads, because we are real leaders. Vote for us.
Ooh, I like what you did there.
You like what I did there?
Yeah, you snuck that one in.
Yeah, I had one other thing.
Yes.
At the very end, we've got Biden bent over with a bottle rocket in his ass, and he's telling Obama, light it. Just light it. Light it. Big fucking deal. Light it. And Obama just like looking at him and crickets playing in the background. And then they both blink. And then like the credits roll.
Oh, I know we got 30 seconds left. We could even have a Kumbaya moment with McCain. He could tell ISIS to get off my lawn and then say, hit him, Barry. My only issue with that, Ag in the chat room, is to have him almost be like Clint Eastwood. McCain doesn't deserve that these days. Valerie Jarrett and Susan Rice with striptease. Well, that would absolutely have ISIS leave us alone forever. Light the candle, they say.
Have Valerie Jarrett in a dress saying, I'm the virgin you get.
This is what you win. Oh, come on. We got to go, folks. It's been a great show. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific here on the Sackheads Radio Show. Don't forget to tune in at 4 p.m. Pacific tomorrow for the Evan Miller Report, 6 p.m. tomorrow Pacific for the exceptional one right here. Check out Agridor and BTR. Check out all of his stuff. Thank you so much to our friends. Clint, we'll have you back in studio next week.
Yeah, I will. I need to figure out how to get out of this damn tree. I don't know if this bear is still around or what.
The higher you are, the better your signal.
I don't even know what I'm going to... My GPS battery died, so I don't know how the hell I'm going to get... I may just have to talk on the phone, and as the signal gets stronger, I might have to, use you as a homing beacon.
All right, we'll do that off the air so people don't get bored. We'll play Marco Polo.
Okay.
Marco!
Polo.
We'll see you next Wednesday here on the Sackheads Radio Show.
In America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk, the Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best late night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Radio. Radio.
The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.